We learned from Mr. House that the NCR failed to annex New Vegas because House's presence on the Strip was too formidable. Instead, they came to the bargaining table and moved into the abandoned McCarran Airport. We find the McCarran Airport just a bit south of New Vegas, and though the NCR is spread all over the Mojave, this is their regional headquarters. On the other side of the wall, we find the NCR's major camp. Here we see a bunch of trucks, supplies, and tents all over the airfield. Now, we've been here before. We came here to help the NCR defeat Cook, a notorious rapist, and a few other local raider bosses. I covered those events in my video on Cook. You can find a link to all the videos I mention in this one in the description below. But if we follow the road east and then turn south, we find the airport's terminal. This was once the regional airport of Las Vegas. It was crumbling in disrepair, but the NCR have been hard at work fixing it up a bit. We see their efforts on full display upon entering the airport. We arrive in a lobby lined with slot machines. There's a sandbag barricade right in front of the door, guarded by an NCR trooper. Above him hangs a small military aircraft. We need to explore this lobby to get our bearings. We'll start by turning east. We see escalators going upstairs to the right, but if we go to the left, we find a door. This door leads to the office of Colonel James Shue. He is the acting leader of the NCR here in the Mojave. All of his superiors are tied up at the moment at Hoover Dam.
I'm usually good with faces, but I don't think I've seen you here before. What brings you to Camp McCarran?
I'm here to provide support. Is there anything I might be able to help with?
You don't cook by any chance, do you? Farber's doing his best, but it's hard to manage an army with half my staff in line for the latrine. Honestly, we're fighting a lot of fires right now. The fiends keep pressing their position from Vault 3. We've got the Legion breathing down our necks across the river. We actually took an officer alive last week, but so far he hasn't spoken a word.
Any other problems?
Yeah. On top of everything else, I can't send a patrol on a bathroom break without it being ambushed by someone who heard they were coming. So somebody's getting the word out.
You seem calm, given that things are as bad as they are.
Calm is what you have to be when people look to you. And it's all you can be when things are out of your hands.
Who are the fiends?
As in chem fiends. Biggest gang of raiders I've ever seen. Nothing like addiction to swell your numbers. Psychotic and completely unpredictable. They set up shop in Vault 3 to the west. Every day they attack our positions and my men repel them. But every day there's more of them and less of us. I sent one of my rangers after their leader to try and destabilize them. He didn't return. Hell of a thing, losing a ranger. You come to depend on them, and they come through for you so often, you forget it can happen.
I'll go to Vault 3 and see if I can find your ranger.
That vault is a hornet's nest. If you have second thoughts, no one would think less of you for it. But if you can get him home, it'd mean a lot. Watch for civilians, too. The fiends have been kidnapping locals. They just walk right into people's homes in the middle of the day and take them. But the man you're looking for is Bryce Anders. Anders was trying to find the leader, Motor Runner. You hear something like a chainsaw? You've found Motor Runner. Put a bullet in his head, and you'll have some new friends around here.
I already completed this mission in my video that I published all about Vault 3. You can watch that story by clicking here. But Colonel James Shue has a bunch of other problems, and he needs our help. Hey, Colonel, I could look into who's leaking NCR intelligence for you.
Well, why not? Given your recent arrival, at least I can safely rule you out as the leak. I'd like to have absolute trust in my men, but that's just not practical right now. Go ahead and look into it. See what you find. We don't have much to go on right now. Lately, every raiding party in New Vegas seems to have a map of our troop movements. It derails everything. Supplies, reinforcements, and it'll only get worse the longer we let it go on. Captain Curtis is heading up the investigation right now. He can fill you in.
And with that, we start the quest, I Put a Spell on You. We can then question the Colonel to learn more about the state of the NCR at this point in the story. What challenges does the NCR face here?
Everything was going according to President Campbell's plan at first. We met minor resistance from local troublemakers. But our two main objectives are still contested. Mr. House controls the Strip and he won't so much as meet with our ambassador. And we're holding Hoover Dam. But Caesar's Legion is positioning itself to overrun it. If it falls, so will New Vegas. We'd be forced to withdraw.
How are things going for the NCR around here?
Could be better, I'll say that much. We set up here with our sights set on annexing New Vegas. It's a lot of resources that could do a lot of good for us. But that hasn't happened. If anything, they annexed us. They rake in the profits from our soldiers, and we're stuck protecting them from the Legion. Not exactly the plan.
We learned from House in my series that I did on the man that this was all part of his plan. Part of the agreement that House and the NCR signed is that the NCR would do nothing to prevent their soldiers from coming to New Vegas and enjoying Sin City. That provision ensures that House is raking in a ton of caps every day from the NCR's pockets. It's no wonder then that James here feels that the NCR drew the short straw. So where does that leave you?
Now we're trying to secure the Strip and the dam at the same time, and it's costing us. And in the meantime, General Oliver won't approve any offensive maneuvers because he doesn't want to risk losing our positions. So we're in a holding pattern here. And Caesar's on the other side of the river, planning.
Prisoner, eh? I bet I could make the Legion prisoner talk.
I have Lieutenant Boyd on that already, and she's excellent, but I think she's hit a wall. Talk to her if you like. See if she has any use for you. Her office is right above mine, but I think she might be interrogating right now. So she'd be upstairs on the other side of the building.
What's Camp McCarran's role in NCR operations?
It's our main base. We took it because it lets us keep an eye on the Strip, and it had already been fortified before the Great War. From here we handle most of the logistics for our operations in Nevada. Troop allocation, supply distribution, intel. Usually General Oliver runs the show here, but he's on his way to the dam now, so I've taken on a lot of his duties here.
Are things mostly quiet between here and the dam?
Unfortunately, no. In fact, the word from the ranger stations has been especially concerning lately. It sounds like they've run into overwhelming resistance, and supplies just aren't reaching them. It's been so bad, I asked Sergeant Reyes at Camp Forlorn Hope to look into it, and see how it is that things could be so fouled up there.
Camp Forlorn Hope is a dark place. The Legion had taken the nearby town of Nelson, and between Camp Forlorn Hope and Nelson is no man's land, strewn with the bodies of NCR soldiers and legionaries. But I covered Camp Forlorn Hope in its own dedicated video, which I'll link to below. So there is quite a lot to do here. First, sounds like they're having a hard time feeding the troops. James complained about their cook named Farber, and that his food is sending all of the soldiers to the latrine. We need to see if we can find Farber to help him with his cooking. We already dealt with the Fiends, and we already dealt with Vault 3, but we learned that there's an intelligence leak, and that the NCR have captured a legionary. Perhaps the legionary knows who's leaking information to the Legion. We need to talk with Lieutenant Boyd to gain access to the prisoner. But before we tackle these tasks, we need to get our bearings. Let's explore the McCarran Airport so that we understand the place before moving forward. Colonel Shu's office is really the only thing back here, unless we turn south. This is the Science and Research Headquarters of the NCR here in the Mojave, led by Thomas Hildern. But we met him previously and did all of his quests in my video about Vault 22, which I linked to below. Heading out of this room, this wing is a dead end, so to continue we can turn west back into the lobby. We see escalators to the left and escalators to the right, but going straight we find what at one time was the airport terminal. There's not much back here, none of the terminals work. We find a few containers, but everything here is set to owned, so we can't take anything without stealing. Turning around to the south, we see large garage doors. These lead outside to the back portion of McCarran Airport. The front portion by the front gate has all of the tents, and this back portion has a lot of the pre-war passenger airplanes and the control tower. We'll be spending a lot of time back there a bit later. Heading back inside the airport, we can continue to explore this bottom floor by moving to the west. Rounding a corner, we find an office to the south. This leads to the office of Captain Ronald Curtis. This was the man that Colonel James Shu asked us to talk with about the intelligence leaks. He sits at his computer looking preoccupied. We'll come back to talk with Ronald Curtis after we do our tour of the airport. Heading out and turning west, we see two bathrooms, a men's and a women's, nothing inside. And then across the hall, we find an inaccessible door. That's it for the lobby level. So to continue, we'll take the escalators upstairs to the west. Here we find a man named Corporal Walter Hornsby guarding a nearby door. This door is where we find Lieutenant Carrie Boyd. She's the one guarding that Legion prisoner, whom we see on the other side of this glass. We'll be back to talk with her in a moment. Heading outside the interrogation chamber, we see a door right next to this one, but it is inaccessible, so instead we can turn west to find a bit of a commissary. There's a lot of pre-war goods on the shelves nearby, a countertop, but we don't see anyone manning it, and no merchant ever comes here. We find bottle caps and a cash register, but this is all set to own, so we'll skip it for now. The door south of this point leads to the brig. We see 3 cells here, but we can only open the leftmost one. At the moment, all 3 cells are empty. On the ground near to this is an MP confiscated goods trunk, locked with a very hard lock. We'll find out what's inside this trunk in just a little bit. But that's it for the western wing, so turning around we can continue by moving east. We pass more slot machines on this top level. It is Vegas after all, and turning around we see a path to the south which leads to the airport concourse. But first we'll explore this path off to the east. This leads to the monorail. But first, at the top of the escalator, we pass Lieutenant Boyd's office. We know this is her office because Shu told us, but of course, she's not here right now. She's off interrogating the Legion prisoner. Out of her office and turning to the north, we see 2 soldiers guarding a door.
Go on through, soldier.
They wave us through thanks to our positive NCR reputation, and we can open this door to the monorail platform. Despite what appears to be the terrible condition of this monorail, it's fully functional. The NCR went and got it working. We see the tracks heading off east and then to the north. They lead right to the heart of New Vegas. It leaves Camp McCarran, circles round the Aerotech Office Park, passes right by the NCR Sharecropper Farms, and then enters the Las Vegas Boulevard Station. This is an easy way to gain access to New Vegas early in the game without having to spend money on a passport. But we only gain access if we are at least liked with the NCR. But heading back to the monorail and taking it back to the airport, we can continue to explore the airport by heading west and then following the hallway south towards the concourse. When we reach the concourse, we travel down another slot machine-lined hallway to find ourselves in a huge room with 6 different sections. To the right, we find a billiard table and a bunch of other slot machines. Looks like the NCR hasn't really done much to this section yet. Right next to this, however, is the cafeteria, where the NCR goes to eat their meals, and it's here where we find Corporal William Farber.
Listen, asshole, I know you're not really an NCR health inspector, so you can cut the restaurant critique routine. And I want my 50 caps back, because I looked it up and there ain't no disease called colorectal implosion syndrome. So I paid you to look the other way for nothing. Wait, you're not... Oh, wow, I'm sorry. You look just like... Never mind, sorry. So what can I serve you up?
Whoa, looks like this guy was taken for a bit of a ride. Is there a health inspector bothering you?
That's nothing. You just look like the health inspector who stopped through for the yearly inspection a couple of weeks back. I was hoping I wouldn't have to wait another 11 months to see his crooked ass to get my caps back. Ah, well. Anything I can get you?
Sure. Got anything to eat?
Oh, yeah. You can order up anything you want. As long as it's corn or beans. Just kidding. Haven't you heard? With a few shipments from home and a little variety, the troops are getting restless for some quality grub. You can only do so much as a chef with just corn, beans, onions, and peppers.
Ah, so that's why Shu said the soldiers were lined up at the latrine. Sounds like their diet consists primarily of beans. Well, Farber, can anything be done to improve your supplies?
Well, we haven't had any quality meat in months. Everyone in the camp just eating beans for protein. It isn't pretty. Some of my kitchen machinery is broken down too, so we've been eating mostly raw vegetables. And I'm desperate for spices or seasonings. Anything, just something for the general mood around here.
Huh, so we need some meat. Where would you suggest I find meat in the amount that you need here?
It doesn't need to all come from the same source. There are a bunch of different vendors around who sell meat. Fitz, the Nashes, Crimson Caravan. We've never really tried to go out and organize deals with merchants to supply our food. Already having an overstock of food, we haven't needed to. But we really need some good old red meat on the menu soon. So I'm willing to divert some caps in their direction if they're open to supplying us.
He gives us a note, meat vendor list. There are a few different vendors who sell snacks and meat. You might try Fitz. He has a small shop with a couple other merchants. Ruby Nash and Prim has some interesting items. Lastly, Crimson Caravan should be able to handle a good amount of supply for us. Try and convince them to trade for some of our overstock if you can. We need to reserve caps if possible. What parts are needed to fix the food processor?
Here's the list. We've been scrapping together quick fixes to keep it running for months. I think it finally crapped out and needs a full overhaul. It's the goofy machine behind the counter in the corner next to the stove. I'd be much obliged if you could take a look at it and get it fixed up.
He gives us the note food processor parts list. You need these parts to fix the food processor: 2 pilot lights, 2 pressure cookers, 2 conductors, 2 fire hose nozzles, 4 fission batteries, 2 steam gauge assemblies, 2 sensor modules, 5 scrap metal, and 1 pot. Well, Corporal, where might I find these parts?
I don't know. Try the various traders around the waste. Or the pawn shop in Westside might have some parts. Oh, I've heard of a place called House Tools you could check out. It's an old factory on the north side of Vegas. Just a word of warning, though. I hear no one who goes in there comes back out. Could be traps, crazy robots, or who knows what's in that place.
We know what's in that place because I already did a video on H&H Tools. And man, does it have a crazy pre-war history. I linked to that video in the description below. Alright then, well, where should I look for spices?
The Crimson Caravan would probably be able to arrange a regular shipment, but I don't know of any spices known to improve mood. Hell, we have a whole research department. One guy's even set up in the main terminal building. They're the ones who ought to be looking into it.
He is talking, of course, about Thomas Hildern. Hildern, who sends us to Vault 22. This is our biggest hint that we can find the spices we need at Vault 22. Well, Corporal, I'd like to buy some food.
Chow down.
And sure enough, his inventory is disappointing. Carrots, potatoes, maize, pork and beans, and water. That's it. Oh, these poor soldiers. While heading behind him, we can inspect the food processor machine that he was talking about. We discover that if we have a repair skill of 80 or above, we can jury-rig the machine without needing any of those scrap parts. Success! Bypassing several broken, redundant coprocessors, using nothing more than bobby pins, tape, and a trooper's Swiss Army knife, you manage to get the machine running. We can then head back to Farber.
Howdy, looking for chow?
Hey, I fixed your food processor.
Amazing. I thought that thing was done for. That'll help me transform what I can offer the troops. I'll give you a little extra discount the next time you buy food from me. Thanks again.
And with that, we complete step 1 of this 3-part unmarked quest. We'll have to find meat for the troops and spices to improve mood while we explore the Mojave later. Heading out from the cafeteria, we can explore the next wing to the right. This is just more slot machines and containers and seats. In the very back, we see a bunch of privacy screens set up, and it looks like this is their small med bay. We find the doctor lingering northeast of here.
If you're looking for a quick stitch, I'm your man.
He does not offer any quests, has no lore, and just offers us basic medical services. Heading out of this wing and taking the first right brings us to a long hallway. Most of this wing of the airport has collapsed in. We find broken concrete and rubble blocking off an entire passage. But we do find a door to the southeast, which leads to the McCarran supply shack. Inside the supply shack, we find a workbench and a reloading bench to the southwest, a bunch of mostly empty shelves off to the east, and then a man named Sergeant Daniel Contreras hanging out over here. He'll become important later. We see stairs in the back. We can take this up to the second level. Here we find a terminal called the NCR Supply Database. Hopping down, we find a door that leads back outside. This leads us to that second wing of the airport, where we find the pre-war passenger planes and the control tower. There are 2 ways back into the shack. We see a staircase on the eastern side of the building that leads up to a door, which brings us back to that second floor of the shack where we found the terminal. Heading out of the supply shack, back to the concourse. If we take the first right, we can explore the final section of the concourse. This appears to be a troop barracks. We see lots of bunks all over the place and lockers for personal storage. And that's the whole airport. Now that we know the lay of the land, it's time to check in with Captain Ronald Curtis. This is the man James Shue asked us to talk with to find out more about the intelligence leaks.
Nice to meet you. I'm Curtis.
Hello, Captain. What do you do here?
Officially, I'm in charge of Bravo Company. But since General Oliver has Bravo and most of our forces here garrisoned, I'm free to do other things. So I work with Colonel Shue on logistics, patrols, supply lines, reinforcements, that sort of thing. Lately, it's been less about that, and more about figuring out how that information is getting leaked to raiders. It's a big base with a lot of unhappy soldiers. They get stir-crazy. Hard to separate the malcontents from the actual culprit.
Colonel Shue wants me to help you look into the recent intelligence leaks.
Smart man. I could use somebody who can operate under the radar around here. Whoever our mole is, he's been slippery. Whenever one of the MPs gets too close, he changes his habits. Our last lead went cold weeks ago.
Where should I start?
You want my advice? Start by talking to people with a lot of eyes in the field. People like Lieutenant Boyd or Sergeant Contreras, maybe. Careful with Contreras, though. He's not above suspicion himself. Keep me apprised of any leads you get. This guy's gotten a lot of my men killed. I'm just itching to return the favor.
All right, thanks, Captain.
Later.
So Ronald Curtis points us to Sergeant Contreras, whom we saw in that supply shack just a moment ago, and Lieutenant Boyd, who's currently interrogating a Legion soldier. However, if we take a look at our Pip-Boy and track the quest in our quest log, and then check out our local map, we see that the quest points us to 3 different points of interest. We see the markers on Contreras and Boyd up to the north, but we also find one far to the south, outside the terminal building. First, let's check in with Sergeant Contreras, heading back upstairs, down the hallway to the concourse, then through the concourse, and down the hallway to the supply shack. We find Contreras exactly where we left him.
You look like someone in need of a reliable supplier.
Reliable supplier? A supplier of what? Well, we'll talk with him more about that later, but for now, Daniel, have you seen anything suspicious lately?
You mean other than some stranger with no military ID interrogating me inside our base? Did Boyd put you up to this? I'm so sick of this harassment. You tell her to stop wasting my time with this bullshit. No, I haven't seen anything suspicious. It's been business as usual.
I see. He seems unnecessarily hostile, which is usually the behavior of someone with something to hide. We definitely need to keep our eyes on Contreras, but for now we have a mission. He referred us to Lieutenant Boyd, but before we go talking with Boyd, let's head outside the airport to see where that quest marker takes us. It takes us to the tent of 1st Recon. We only find the 1st Recon snipers here before we complete their quests with the Fiends, which I covered in my video on Cook. Afterwards, they appear in a tent at Camp Forlorn Hope. But the quest marker lands on the elderly man in the fancy hat named Corporal Sterling.
Howdy. Name's Sterling, 1st Recon. Can't say I've seen you before. I'd remember if I had.
Do you remember everyone who passes through here?
Got a good memory for faces, landmarks and such too. Comes with practice, that's all, and a lot of scouting from place to place.
In that case, have you seen anything suspicious around here?
As a matter of fact, it's funny that you'd ask. A couple nights back, I was on watch in the yard. Got myself a habit of looking all around, not just where I'd expect to find trouble. Old habit, but it saved my hide on occasion. Round about 1 in the morning, I spied some lights in the control tower. Now that's the 3rd time I've spied those lights, mind you. And every time I ask about it, they tell me the place was empty. I'm just saying, didn't look empty to me.
Thanks for the information.
No trouble at all. Might be nothing. Couple frisky young folks looking for a quiet place to snuggle up. That light is mighty consistent. Always there at 1 a.m. Might be worth a look.
Well, we just got a very important clue from Corporal Sterling. He sees a light in the control tower, and it's always at the same time, 1 a.m. But when he asks about it, he gets brushed off. You'd think that since the intelligence leaks are so well known, that whomever Corporal Sterling is talking to about this would take him more seriously. But apparently they don't. Who exactly has he told about this? Well, we have one person left to meet with about this, and that's Lieutenant Boyd right upstairs.
Boyd's in there with a prisoner right now. Boy, is she pissed.
Opening the door, we see her, and she is pretty pissed.
You stick out like a sore thumb around here. You sure you're in the right place?
Who are you?
Not big on reading name tags, huh? That's okay. My name is long and difficult to pronounce. Ready for it? It's Boyd. Lieutenant Boyd to my friends. Colonel Shu has me handling the policing duties for the base. I've told him he could make my job a whole lot easier if he would just let me shoot anyone who talks back to me. But you know how colonels can be.
Goodness. Is her sarcasm free or does it cost extra? Hey Boyd, do you need any help?
Yeah, so far this has gone exactly as expected. Poorly. But with the work you've done for NCR already, you might be just what I've been looking for. We captured an honest-to-God centurion of Caesar's Legion recently.
Is that a big deal?
Better believe it. Everybody in Caesar's Legion from Caesar on down will kill themselves before they can be captured. They're so twitchy they'd probably do it if you reached out to hug them. But here's this guy, who's an elite commander in their army and he just gives himself up, even as his men are slitting their own throats around him.
What do you think it means?
Well, I don't know about you, but to me that sounds like a man who's willing to cooperate. Except he hasn't. Only times he speaks up are to insult you. He's a real prick, by the way. And I'm supposed to get information out of this guy.
Well, what about a truth drug?
Don't have anything like that. Sounds nice. Like the kind of thing I'd want to take home and use on my husband. But even if we did, I don't know that I'd be comfortable using it. If there's any risk of overdose, it's not worth it. Asshole's too valuable.
Have you tried calling him hurtful names?
Yes, and one time I thought I saw a tear when I told him his uniform was unflattering. But I think he just got some dust in his eye.
Well, why don't you just beat your prisoner senseless?
I like the way you think. Have I said that yet? Problem is that the NCR frowns on using that sort of tactic. There's some restrictions still in place from President Tandy's administration. But here's my favorite thing about you. You're not in the NCR. Plus, for all this guy knows, you're completely insane. That's a winning combination.
So you want me to do what you can't?
I think if you rough him up enough and really put some fear into him, he'll sing like a choir boy. So let's do this. When you're ready, I'll go in and give you a little intro. Then I leave the room and you make him regret the day he was born. We go back and forth a couple times until either he talks or he can't move his jaw anymore. Either way, we've had our entertainment for the day.
I don't think I'm interested, sorry.
You sure? You're missing out. Well, you're always welcome if you should change your mind.
I object to the use of violence against prisoners of war.
Tear my heart out, why don't you? Well, maybe you can find a way to play with his mind, get him out of his comfort zone. People lose their heads and say things they regret, especially if they underestimate you. This dickhead would underestimate a nuclear missile. Plenty of ways to skin a cat, as they say. Hey, what if we skinned him? Bet he wouldn't be so smug then.
All right, Boyd, I'm in. Let's get started.
That's the spirit. Okay, I'll go in and have a word with him. Then I'll call you in.
With that, she enters the interrogation cell, and we can observe from the window.
Long time no see, Silus.
Lieutenant, I was just thinking about you.
That's so.
I was just thinking about that pretty neck of yours.
How sweet.
I was thinking about how it would look with a Legion slave collar on it.
I'll pass.
Do you know what I love about our slave collars, Lieutenant?
If you love them, maybe you should try one on.
I love how tightly they fit. I train my men to make sure the slave's flesh bulges a bit around the top and bottom. Know why?
It's all the rage in fashion circles?
Not quite. If you fit it just right, their body never gets used to the feeling of wearing it. It cuts in just enough when they swallow or turn their head to remind them who they belong to. And it's that constant reminder that keeps them docile.
In that case, maybe you'd better save the collar you were gonna give me.
Oh? For whom?
For a friend of mine you're about to meet. My friend isn't very docile.
And who is this friend of yours?
You know all the rules the NCR instituted to protect enemy prisoners of war?
Of course.
My friend doesn't. Oh, and Silus? If you resist at all, I'll personally blow your brains out. Come on in, he's all yours. I'll be back in a bit to see how you're getting along. And I'll need you to surrender your weapons before you go in. You can pick them up from the locker on your way out.
Ooh, this guy sounds like he's gonna be fun. Heading inside the cell, we can stand before Silus. Now, there are 3 ways to go about this. The first is good old-fashioned violence. We can beat on Silus here for a good long while, but he never strikes back. What kind of legionary is this who doesn't strike back? Sure, he becomes aggressive. Yes, he defends himself, but he never throws a punch, which makes me feel weird. It's no fun fighting someone who doesn't fight back. After a while, Boyd steps in to stop the carnage.
All right, you can stop for a sec. Whoa, easy there. You're supposed to rough him up a little, not kill him. Why don't you step outside a minute? Let off some steam. Nice job.
Oh, sounds like a good idea. I'm feeling pretty steamed. Heading outside.
I think my friend doesn't like you, Silus. I don't know how much longer I can keep her under control.
You think this'll make me talk? A beating? This is the best you can do?
Not just any beating, Silus. A savage beating. A beating that you'll be reminded of every time you feel pain from now on. When my friend's done with you, you won't have any of your teeth left. You'll be drinking your food through a straw. Your ribs will never heal properly, and it will hurt every time you breathe. It'll be like your collars, Silus. Impossible to forget.
Go to hell.
Huh. Not the sort of wit I've come to expect from you, Silus.
You're getting nothing from me.
I'm getting entertainment. That's something. So what's it gonna be? Are you gonna spill your guts to me? Or am I gonna let my friend the maniac back in here for some playtime? Silus. Silent treatment, huh? Have it your way. Come on back in. I think he misses you. Oh, and let me check you for weapons one more time. For your safety as well as his.
Time for round 2. Heading inside, we can engage in another round of fisticuffs. The battle goes on for what seems like forever, until finally...
Enough, this is pointless. I'm dead to the Legion either way, I'll tell you what I know. But you should know that Caesar has always kept his own counsel. He never reveals anything that would make him vulnerable. My knowledge will not prevent the inevitable. This camp will be ash within months. Maybe weeks.
At this point, he'll tell us everything he knows, which we can get from him by saying, "I'll be the judge of that. Let's hear what you've got to say." Or we can continue with the hostilities by saying, "Maybe I'll beat some more information out of you."
Beat me all you like, but it won't make my information any more useful. You can take what I have or leave it.
At this point, we can let him open his mouth or we can attack. Then I may as well beat you to death for personal satisfaction.
Let's see you try.
We can continue to wail on this guy, or if we have a high sneak skill and we are holding a holdout weapon, we can finish things much more quickly. If we kill him on his body, we simply find Legion Centurion armor, and we can head outside to check in with Boyd.
You weren't supposed to kill him! God damn it! Not only did we not get any information, but now you've ended his suffering too. Shit! Guess I can forget about a promotion this decade. Thanks a lot, asshole. Fuck. What am I gonna tell the Colonel?
Alternatively, if we don't want to go down the violent path, we can try to talk some information out of this guy.
What an ugly little worm you are. What pile of excrement did the lieutenant pluck you from, worm?
I think you're confused. I'm with the excrement right now.
You must have some reason to be in your line of work. Tell me, what did the Legion do to you? Did we enslave your children? Slaughter your family before your eyes to teach you a lesson? Whatever it was, I hope I was there to give the order.
You're about to tell me everything you know, Silus.
Of course. All you had to do was ask. I'll tell you everything I know. Let's see. I know that you're a brainless cretin. I know that you're wasting your time. I know the lieutenant is going to be disappointed in you. And I know that by this time next month, the streets of New Vegas will be decorated with the decaying heads of NCR soldiers. Is there anything else you wanted to know?
You must miss giving orders, now that your men are all dead.
Foot soldiers of the Legion are trained not to have to think for themselves, to have conflict removed from their minds. They kill themselves to evade capture because they are not trusted to make such a decision rationally in the heat of battle. But I'm no foot soldier. I knew I could escape captivity on my own without revealing the tiniest iota of information to my captors.
Sounds to me like you were too gutless to follow Caesar's orders.
I'll show you gutless, you sniveling bastard. I'll spill your guts all over this room.
With that, he gets agitated.
Is something the matter, Celus? You look upset. Here, maybe you'd better step out for a moment. You've upset him.
Poor little fella.
Your friend is a miserable fucking degenerate.
I don't know. I thought she seemed like a nice lady.
If we were on the other side of the river, I'd have her torn apart by dogs.
That's a long walk, Celus. I don't think it's gonna happen. You'd better just talk.
Your tactics are a joke.
If you don't like dealing with me, I can bring my friend back in.
Both of you can rot.
Have it your way. Come on back in. I think he misses you.
Back inside, we can try for round 2.
We don't have anything to discuss, worm.
But I want to know how a coward can attain the rank of centurion.
Coward? I've faced odds that would make your NCR soldiers wet themselves.
You sure talk tough for someone who's afraid to die.
You think I could get where I was in the Legion army if I feared death? I've led charges against men with guns, carrying only my knife. And I can tell you, it was they who feared me. But suicide is a weak death on a battlefield. It says to your enemy that you fear capture. It says if you're caught, you can be broken.
He responds the same way to both of these speech options. So we'll go ahead and say, so, you were unafraid to cut any throat but your own.
You think I'm going to slit my throat for some megalomaniacal self-appointed dictator? I didn't work my way up to have it all be taken from me out of some irrational paranoia. Caesar's losing it. I believe that. He's been shutting himself in his tent. Privately, he complains of headaches. Whatever it is, it's affecting his ability to lead. Time was essential for my mission, but we waited 3 days for him to dispatch us. Another of his headaches. Does that sound like a man in command? He has an operative planted in this very base, but does he use his agent to rescue me? No. He's content to have the agent spend his nights radioing troop positions back to our base camp. He knows I'm here, and he's left me to rot.
Who's the operative?
I don't know. I know he sends intelligence by radio in the middle of the night. Sometimes that intelligence would find its way to my cantery.
I don't believe you. You're lying.
Then you're a fool. That man reports to Caesar on what I do here. The Legion isn't going to take me back. My only hope is to escape and disappear. But if I escape and he reports it, they'll hunt me down as long as I live. It served me to report him as much as it served you.
He responds the same way to both of these final 2 options. So we'll say, you see, don't you feel better now that you've divulged all those state secrets?
I hope the Legion burns your wretched body at the stake when they conquer this place. Nothing I could tell you would do anything to stop that.
With that, peering out the window, we see that Boyd is satisfied. She just walks right out. So heading out and chasing after her.
You did well. I don't know how you did it without putting a scratch on him, and I'm a little disappointed personally, but it saved the NCR some face. And it could save us more than that when all is said and done. I'm gonna talk to some people when we're through here. This is about double the standard fee we'd give a consultant, but from what I saw, you're more of an artist. So think of this as your commission.
Now the third way is to deal with Celus in favor of the Legion. I say that, but in reality, the only person who benefits from this is Celus himself, because as a captive, he's supposed to have committed suicide by now, but he hasn't. I wonder why.
What an ugly little worm you are. What pile of excrement did the lieutenant pluck you from, worm?
If our Legion reputation is high enough, we can say, hey, I'm a friend of the Legion, and I'm here to help you.
Caesar's eyes truly are everywhere. And here I thought they'd send assassins instead. Did the officer send you?
No, I work independently.
Perhaps not then.
How many agents of the Legion are there here?
I know of only the one other, though I wouldn't be surprised if there were a great many.
What officer?
I don't know what name he goes by here, but I saw him when they brought me in, and I recognized him. When I saw him last, it was ages ago. He was training to be an agent of Caesar's Frumentari. Apparently he passed the trials. And what a job he's done to achieve such a rank. I have no doubt he'll deliver a crippling blow to the NCR while he's here, perhaps many. I have heard that he's been radioing high-level NCR intelligence back to Caesar's camp virtually every night. But never mind that now, we don't have much time. If you can get me a weapon, the rest will be easy. In the hall outside, they still have my possessions in a locker. There's a gun in there that should be small enough to get past the lieutenant. When she comes back, I want you to go and get it for me. Simple enough.
I understand.
Good. But for her to trust you to re-enter the room, she'll need to believe you've been doing what she expects of you. You'll need to punch me until I'm bleeding and weak. Go on, this is nothing compared to the Legion's training.
With that, he stands up and we fake a fight. But like the Lone Wanderer did with Soma on Mothership Zeta, we've got to make this look convincing. So after we spill a bit of blood and do a few knockdowns, Lieutenant Boyd comes in just like before. We step outside, and she harasses Silus a bit, just as before, but this time, while Boyd is distracted, we can loot a nearby locker, where we find a silenced .22 pistol. But once Boyd is done, she invites us back into the cell to continue our interrogation, just as before, only this time...
Have you got it?
Yes, I have it here.
Good. Give it to me. I'm going to pretend to be unconscious. Let them send you out so no one suspects you. When I'm alone with a guard, I'll shoot him and leave in his uniform.
With that, Silu stands up and rather gingerly lies down.
Poor guy. He's all tuckered out. Well, I guess we'll have to pick up where we left off tomorrow. Good work. I'm sure he'll have had enough after a few days of this. Or, if we're lucky, a few months. I'll get someone in here to clean up the mess he made. You can head out for the day. Let's let him sleep.
With that, Boyd walks out the cell, and we can follow her. She steps out into the hallway and calls to a nearby guard.
Mind cleaning up our mess, Corporal?
Not at all, ma'am. I'll get right on it.
We don't see any. Oh, there he was, stuck behind the door. This was Corporal Walter Hornsby, whom we met earlier. Boyd heads on over to her office on the other side of the lobby, but the corporal enters the cell. We can crouch down and observe what happens next.
Get your ass up. What the...
Silus murders the corporal and puts on his uniform. He then, quietly and slowly, to avoid detection, walks out of the airport. If we try to talk with him...
Get away from me.
Not exactly appreciative of our efforts. He heads down the escalator, across the lobby floor, and exits the airport. Even if we immediately step outside, we see that he's gone. After helping him to escape, Silus disappears from the world. No one seems to have any reaction to this, however. If we allow him to escape and head back to Lieutenant Boyd, she has no new dialogue. Doesn't even mention it, even though the corporal is lying dead in his cell. But no matter how we choose to resolve this quest, we learned something extremely important. We learned that the Legion does indeed have a spy here at the airport. And not just any spy, an officer. A high-ranking Legion official. Someone whom Silus recognized and who recognized Silus. We can ask Boyd if she knows anything more about this by saying, "Have you noticed anything suspicious lately?"
Now, what kind of MP would I be if I didn't notice anything suspicious? I've had soldiers go AWOL, break-ins, thefts, you name it.
Who's missing?
Well, there's Anders. He's a ranger. That one's not suspicious so much as worrisome. He left on a dangerous assignment. Colonel Shu sent him out. Now I think he feels guilty not having any way to check up on him.
What else can you tell me about Anders?
I don't know him very well myself. I seem to remember that he was the man to call on if you needed someone to get in and get out quietly. Colonel Shu would really be the person to talk to.
Yeah, we already talked with Shu about Anders, and we found him in Vault 3. Is there anyone else missing?
Yeah. The man I'm more interested in is Corporal White. White had a lot of promise. Wanted to be a ranger as bad as anyone I've seen. But he also had some extracurricular activities going. Now he's gone.
I'll see what I can find out about Corporal White for you.
Word around the base is he'd been going regularly to visit a hooker named Dazzle at Gamora. That's a casino on the Strip. Classy place. His belongings are up in the barracks in the concourse building. First bunk on your left if you're facing it from the center. I haven't had a chance to look through his things yet, so that might be a good place to begin.
And with that, we begin the quest called The Whitewash. Well, what can you tell me about the break-ins?
Maybe break-in isn't the right word. We didn't find signs of forced entry, but I've had reports of someone sneaking into the control tower at night. It's probably just a meeting spot for a steamy military base love affair. Kids today. But it bothers me that they didn't break in. It means they have an access code. Most soldiers around the base don't have that.
Aha! And Boyd corroborates what Corporal Sterling said. Well, Boyd, would you be willing to give me the control tower access key? So I can check it out?
Sure, if you want to investigate. It's not like there's anything to steal up there. Just a bunch of old communications equipment. If you can find out any more, I'd be interested to hear it. There's something about this I really don't like. And if I weren't tied up here, I'd be staking it out personally.
And finally, we can say, so you said there have been thefts?
Not the kind of things you like to see go missing. No witnesses yet. I've got my money on Sergeant Contreras, who's supposed to be in charge of distribution, the little weasel. But he's too slick to let anyone catch him doing it. We've searched his possessions a dozen times. Nothing.
Huh. Sergeant Contreras, eh? Something did sound fishy about that guy. All right, I'll keep an eye out for your missing supplies.
Good. The more guns you can recover, the more I'll be able to use to shoot Contreras for being inept.
Wow, we just got saddled with 2 more tasks. We already know what happened to Ranger Anders, but we now need to track down Corporal White. And then we need to figure out who's responsible for all of the missing supplies, the primary suspect right now being Sergeant Contreras. But we need to stay on task. Right now, we need to figure out who's leaking NCR intelligence to the Legion. And we've already collected plenty of clues. Both Sterling and Boyd told us that they've seen suspicious activity at the nearby control tower. Boyd gave us the key to said tower, and Sterling told us that the activity happens at 1 a.m. Heading outside to the second half of Camp McCarran, we can walk past all of the pre-war passenger planes to the western side of the building. Here we see a control tower towering above the airfield. Directly beneath it is a door, and next to it, a terminal. We have the key to the door, but I want to inspect this terminal. It's locked with an easy lock, and after hacking it, we find one option: Control Tower Access Logs. Camp McCarran Control Tower, Automated Front Door Activity Log. Soldiers on duty this week: Barker Schulman, morning shift 0630 to 1230, and Reynolds Howell, evening shift 1230 to 6 p.m. On Wednesday, nothing is out of the ordinary. Barker entered the control tower at 6:25, 5 minutes before his shift was to begin. But it looks like someone else entered 6 minutes before him. Those two remained in the control tower until 5 minutes after noon, when a third person entered the tower. Someone left 6 minutes later, someone entered 2 minutes later, someone left 3 minutes after that, which leaves 2 people in the tower until 6:03, when one person leaves, and then 6:05 when the second person leaves. I don't know if we can divine too much information from this, because it could simply be that the soldiers were getting food or meeting with friends or maybe having a romantic tryst. The real interesting information comes the previous day, on Tuesday, when we find an entry at 1:02 in the morning. Whomever it was who entered left 13 minutes later at 1:15. And then the day goes on as normal. Barker arrives in the morning at 6:21, and we see a very similar situation that we saw on Wednesday. The previous day on Monday is equally as perplexing. Again, we find somebody enter at 1 in the morning, and that person stays even longer this time until 1:23 in the morning. But then the day goes on as normal, with Barker and Reynolds doing their daily diligence. So it sounds like Sterling was spot on when he reported seeing a light at 1 in the morning. It's the middle of the day, but we can head inside just to see what it's like up here, and it's pretty small. We see some sort of machine spinning to the right, a big console to the right of this, and then against the wall we find a radio, but we can't interact with it. On the table we find a ham radio, but we can't interact with it. Well, there's nothing for it. We now have to wait until early morning. Now, there are plenty of places to hide. One of the first that comes to mind is behind one of these large airplanes. But I wanted a spot that had a great view of the tower in case the light comes on, and the front door so I could see somebody approaching. So I found a nice little nook between two shipping containers right against the airport. Then, it was just a waiting game. Fast forward a few hours till around 1 in the morning. Nothing happens until... Wait, were those feet? Sure enough, we see somebody walking on the other side of that plane. It is an NCR soldier, but I can't make him out from this distance. We can wait for him to enter the tower. Strangely enough, even though he goes inside, we don't see the light turn on. I'm not sure if it was just my game or maybe Corporal Sterling was mistaken. I waited for a while, but the light never came on, and I didn't want to miss my opportunity. So running across the tarmac, we can quickly enter the door. And as soon as we arrive on the other side, we hear...
Lupa, this is Frumentarius Picus. Over.
Go ahead, Picus.
Afternoon patrol enters Fiend territory at 1300. Have them mind that stretch.
10-4, Picus. Fiends will be alerted.
Roger, Lupa.
What's the status of your primary mission, Picus?
Charges are set. Detonation will occur as the train leaves the station. Over.
How long?
Couple of minutes. Over.
10-4. Keep us updated.
10-4.
So they're planning to bomb the monorail. And who is that? For some reason, his voice sounded familiar. We have a couple of options. We could leave. We could stealthily assassinate him. Or we can simply stand up, and we discover that the spy is...
What are you doing here? You don't have clearance.
Captain Ronald Curtis, the very man Shu put in charge of the investigation. The captain is not pleased to see us. You don't seem like you're supposed to be here either, Captain.
Really? And how would you know where I'm supposed to be?
I don't. I was just trying to get myself out of trouble.
I can't let you leave.
I heard someone's been breaking in here at night. Looks like it's you.
I don't know what you mean.
Hey, is there a bathroom in here?
I can't let you leave.
I may not have clearance to be here, but you know what? I do have the clearance for catching spies.
I don't know what you mean. Hey!
On his corpse, we find a small stash of gear as well as the control tower access code, which we could use to hack into the terminal outside, and an activation code holotape. This must be for the bomb. Now, there are a few other ways that we could have gone about resolving this. Instead of showing ourselves, we could have donned our stealth armor and crept up quietly behind him. Instead of killing him, we can loot the activation code by pickpocketing it from him.
Medic supplies adequate.
Then slowly back on out and exit the control tower. Now we know that the Legion plans to bomb the monorail, and we've got the bomb activation code. We can then race back to the lobby and head up the stairs to the monorail to find and deactivate this bomb. Heading towards the monorail, we no longer find an option to activate it. Instead, we can walk right in, and peering around... Ooh, what's that? We see a blinking light coming from a nearby air vent. Crouching down, sure enough, it's the bomb. Upon activating the vent, we see that the device looks as though it's armed and could go off at any moment. If we have an explosive skill of 35 or higher, or a science skill of 45 or higher, we can deactivate this without having the deactivation code. But since we pickpocketed it, from off the captain's inventory, we can simply input the deactivation code. And upon doing so, we successfully disarm the bomb. We can then head back inside, go down the escalator, and report in with Colonel Shu.
Yes, what is it?
You won't be having problems with intelligence leaks anymore.
No? What happened?
It was Curtis. He's in the Legion. I can prove that he tried to blow up the monorail.
Curtis? He's been in the NCR long before our conflict with the Legion. There's just no way. I hope you're mistaken, but somehow I don't think so. It'd explain a lot. This is much worse than anyone expected. There could be others, too. You've done everything that was asked of you. You have my personal thanks for this. And I'll make sure you receive the credit you deserve. I'll have Curtis taken into custody. If he lets himself be taken alive, that is.
Oh, that's right. Legionaries commit suicide before being captured. Oh no. Racing to his office, we find that he's not there, so that must mean he's still in the tower. Racing back outside, we can head to the tower as fast as we can, hopefully to prevent his suicide. Going through the door, we climb the stairs, and we're too late. We find the corpse of Captain Ronald Curtis. Perhaps after ending his call with the Legion, he felt around for the activation code, but couldn't find it, and realized what happened. But this is only one way the situation can go down. There are a few other endings depending on the choices that we made. For example, if we chose to race into the control tower and we didn't stop to overhear their conversation, Curtis confronts us before he has the opportunity to talk about the bomb on the monorail. We're then forced to kill him before we ever learn about the bomb. Since we don't know that the bomb is there, we have no reason to explore the monorail. And on his inventory, we don't find the activation code. So, we head back into the airport and go talk with Colonel Shu. We again tell him that he doesn't have to worry about intelligence leaks, and we explain by saying that we caught Curtis radioing intel to Caesar's Legion, and that we had to take him out.
Curtis, something's not right. He came to me today saying he was worried about the monorail. Had me put him in charge of the inspection crew. Listen, you've got to get to the monorail. If it's been sabotaged, we're completely crippled here. Go.
Heading out of his office, we can race up the escalator. Passing through the door, we can race towards the monorail, but no matter how fast we run,
the train is about to depart. Please clear the doors and restrain any young children.
and the bomb detonates. I tried to get to the monorail before it left the station half a dozen times, but no matter how fast I ran, I never got there in time. This is sadly a scripted event. If we don't stop and listen upon entering the control tower and overhear Curtis talking about the bomb, then we lose the monorail forever. But we can still complete the quest. After seeing the monorail go up in flames, we can head back downstairs and check in with Colonel Shu.
What happened?
The monorail's destroyed.
God damn it. How could I have let this happen? If only we'd caught this sooner, before he got to the monorail. Still, this investigation has been valuable to us, and you deserve to be compensated for it. The NCR appreciates the work you've done. Will there be anything else?
We complete the quest, we still get NCR fame, and we get a stash of caps. But there is another alternative. Remember, Captain Ronald Curtis was the man in charge of the investigation into the intelligence leaks. So earlier in this quest, we had no reason to suspect him. After learning about the control tower from Corporal Sterling and getting the key from Boyd, we could have gone downstairs and told all of this information to Captain Curtis. I have a lead. There's been someone sneaking into the control tower at night.
Is that right? No one has any business being in there after dusk. I wonder... There's a lot of communications equipment up there. He could be using it to touch base with whoever sent him. You've already done us a lot of good, but I'm afraid to move on this myself. We've tried catching this guy before, and he can always smell a trap. But he may not know about you. I need you to follow him into the tower. See if you can discover his identity. Report back and I'll have him arrested.
He, like Boyd, sends us to the control tower at night. But this time when we enter, no matter how long we wait, we don't hear any conversations. And that's because he knows we're coming.
You're getting too close, Seamus.
He sent us here to assassinate us, to put us out of the picture. On his corpse, we find the activation code, but we have no idea what this is for, because we never heard him talk about the bomb. So as far as our character is concerned, we've solved the issue. We've plugged the leak. But when we head back to Shu and tell him the news, he tells us the exact same thing. And just like before, we race up the stairs and head out the door only to watch the monorail explode. So if we tell Curtis we have a lead, we can't save the monorail. The only way to complete this quest and to save the monorail is to sneak into the control tower quietly, to sit and listen until Curtis finishes talking with the Legion, and then to kill him. It's important to kill him if we have Boone as a companion, because killing Captain Curtis gives Boone a history point towards unlocking his personal quest. There is another possible scenario. If Captain Curtis finds us stalking him on the tarmac, he confronts us.
Hey, what are you doing out here at this hour?
We have the option to say that we have a lead, but that puts us back into the ambush scenario, where he sends us to the tower to try to kill us. So instead we could say, what am I doing here? I could ask you the same question.
See those menacing-looking troopers with guns standing on the walls up there? That's Bravo Company. My company. Since Oliver stuck me in a desk job, I hardly ever get to see them during the day, so sometimes I like to check up on them when they have night duty. But you still haven't answered my question.
Oh, nothing.
Be straight with me. If you're onto something, I want to know about it. If you were to get caught or killed, we'd lose everything you've learned about this case.
Our only way to avoid the ambush is to pass a 50 speech check to say, I couldn't sleep, so I decided to take a walk.
Yeah. I get insomnia pretty bad myself out here. I think it's the heat. Weird how sometimes it's cooler out here than it is inside. Well, I hope you manage to get some rest. Take it easy.
But he turns tail and heads in the other direction. Even if we pass the speech check, we've got to wait until tomorrow night in hopes that we can catch him again. Now, there is one final way that this quest could go down, but we only get it if we side with the Legion. We can go through this entire experience, but from the Legion side. After arriving at the fort, if Volpe Zincolta is still alive, he tells us about the spy at McCarran Airport and sends us here to help him. From this perspective, we learn more about Curtis and how long he's been a Legion mole. But I need to save that story for when I do my series on the Legion. It ties in well with all of the other astounding ways that the Legion has infiltrated the very ranks of the NCR, and so I'll save that story for that series. But at least now we've solved the intelligence leak at McCarran Airport. But we have so much more to do. In our next episode, we'll follow the trail of Corporal White. Remember, Boyd told us that he was missing, and she gave us directions to his locker to search it to see if we can find any clues. Then we have to finish fixing the food problem here at McCarran by getting Faber a steady source of healthy meat, and by finding some spices. And finally, we will deal with the theft situation here at the airport and talk with the prime suspect, Sergeant Contreras. I publish many videos every single week, so if you don't want to miss the next episode, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I have a brand new shirt in the shop, folks. Mankind Redefined. We have a beautiful drawing of Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man on one side, and on the other side, we see a much more synthetic version. You can find this shirt in a wide array of colors and in a variety of both men's and women's sizes. I've got dozens upon dozens of awesome designs, and they come on a bunch of other stuff as well. Mugs, posters, prints, pillows, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you could click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with episode 2 of Camp McCarran.